Guys, welcome to another episode of The Pulse. Excited to spend some time with today's guest. He is an actor, comedian, a writer, and much more. He is Mr. Tim Meadows. I paused there for a second because I started to call you the ladies' man and all this, and I thought that was a little corny.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say corny, but it is one of the things that I'm known for. But I'm proud of the character. But I love when you say writer. That's also a nice credit to have in there.
Absolutely. Well, let's.
And in fact, I'll show you something.
Show me.
I never do this, but see, it's my Writers Guild Award.
Okay. All right. Congratulations.
Yeah. See, I'm a real writer.
But that's actually an interesting place to start, because when you talk about people who have accomplished so many different things, known for comedian, acting, writing, you seem very proud of that part of it. How do you define yourself, or do you?
I don't define myself. I guess I would say father first. But professionally, I would say I guess I'm a comedic actor. That's how I would describe myself. Improvisational actor, comedian, writer. Started off doing improv. So I think that's that's the thing that I feel like was my entrance into show business. So I feel like that's what I'm closest to, I'm closest to that.
How old were you when you got started in improv, and that launched your career?
That launched my career. When I started doing improv, I was probably 24, 25 years old. And I started taking classes in Detroit, Michigan, where I'm at right now, where I live.
So is it a true story that I read, and this is close to my heart, that you were interested potentially in journalism, and then you saw what we make and said, that's a hard pass?
Yeah, man. Well, I saw a story about first year. It was the first year job. This is what you'll make first year out of college in whatever profession you chose. And I was journalism. I think at the time it was maybe $17,000 a year. And I was making that much money working at a bank and at a Ponderosa steakhouse. So I had two jobs, and I was making more than a journalist starting out. So I was like, well, I can just keep doing what I'm doing, and I'll be fine financially. That was one of the things that made me rethink what I was going to do, because I also realized that I could just work at a normal job and learn how to act and do improv.
So the, in quotes, struggling actor, comedian, and working at Ponderosa was more appealing than my career path.
Than what you are doing. No offense.
Now listen, I know our bosses watch this show, so I am happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you guys are doing better now, but for me at the time, it was not something I was interested in doing. I just figured I could put it off for a while. I just thought I'm going to pursue this other thing. And then if I can't do it, then I'll come back and I'll, follow my dreams of journalism or advertising or whatever, And I gave myself 5 years, because seriously, I thought I can go to Chicago and I could get, and I did. I worked at a record store, and I worked at a store that sold stereos while I was learning how to do improv, and which was still making more than a journalist. So I was still able to take care of myself, as an actor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then once I started getting gigs, people don't know this, but when in Chicago, some of my first jobs was as a model.
Okay.
Not like a handsome model who poses for with nice clothes. I was like the kind of model that you would hire to do a U-Haul ad. I'd be like the guy holding a box, and the people are pointing where to put the box and stuff.
I understand the hustle.
I did a bunch of jobs like that too, where it was just one I remember was they hired 6 or 7 men to pretend to play soccer on a field. It was insurance ad or something, but it had nothing to do with like soccer or whatever. But you could see my legs in the picture running by, like kicking a soccer ball, And I was like, they're gonna pay me for this. This is like I'm living the dream.
Soccer shoots were still better than journalism. The theme of this segment so far. Coming up next on The Pulse, a lot of people say it, but Tim Meadows means it. It wasn't about the fame.
I always tell my kids this, and whether people believe me or not, I did not get into this to be rich. I didn't get into this to be famous. I got into it because I loved doing comedy.
So you said you gave yourself 5 years to kind of go out there and pursue that path. And you started getting the gigs and improvisation and comedy. And then was it fast track? Did SNL and the big leap hit that fast?
It happened literally within the 5 years that I said that I would give myself. Because I was 28, 29 when I started SNL. I went to Chicago and I did improv there all the time. And then Saturday Night Live came a couple years after that. They saw me performing there and then brought me to New York. And that was over a 5-year period.
And you didn't even have to audition. Like they saw you and they're like, I want that guy.
Yeah. I didn't have to audition. And I think they started making people audition after they hired me without an audition. They were like, you know what? We better go back to doing the auditions again.
Like, I'm pretty sure I remember that guy from a soccer commercial. We should get him on SNL.
Yeah. What is he doing here? But I didn't audition. And I think there was maybe a little confusion because I think in the beginning there was talk that I was just going to come on as a writer. And I think Lorne Michaels maybe decided differently somewhere in between me having a meeting with him and them bringing me out to do the show. You
ended up being one of the longest standing members of SNL. Did about 10 years on SNL. And so is that like, do you sit back now and look at it and go, wow, that was big?
I want to say it was a dream come true, I really wanted to. I loved that show, and I loved that kind of comedy, and I love sketch comedy, and so for me to get the opportunity to work on that show, it was big. I mean, when I got the phone call, I literally knew my life was going to change. I was living in a studio apartment in Chicago. And it was a nice studio, but it was still a studio. And I was with a girl, the girl who I was dating at the time. And then she was like, oh my God. And I was like, I know, oh my God, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm not gonna be dating you anymore. I'm gonna be dating hotter chicks.
Like, oh, you said, oh my God, but for very different reasons.
Oh my God, maybe I can date Holly Berry.
The oh my God moment turned into an oh my God 10 years, turned into being, 10 years isn't exactly overnight. Even 10 years with the 5 years isn't exactly overnight, but you became an extremely recognizable and your characters became extremely recognizable. Like, what was that like for somebody who was, seemingly enjoying the art and the writing and what have you? Now, people all know you.
I always tell my kids this, and whether people believe me or not, I did not get into this to be rich. I didn't get into this to be famous. I got into it because I loved doing comedy. And my career has been fine, but I know people way more successful than me. And I know people who aren't as successful as me. I love performing. I love doing stand-up. I love doing improv when I want to do it. When I don't want to do it, I don't love it. You know what I'm saying? But when I love doing it, I love doing it,
and that was the goal.
That was the goal, yeah, that was the goal. The goal was never like, I want to be a legendary comedian or I want to be a legendary character actor or stand up or anything. It was just literally, I'm going to try this for 5 years and I'll see what happens.
You know what's really interesting, and you said that people may or may not believe you when you say that, but I'm going to share with you the conversation that myself and producer had as I was doing research for this interview. And I said to her behind the scenes, in doing research for this interview, the first impression that I get is he doesn't care that much about the celebrity status. Like, you can look at your stuff and your social media and the things that you've done, and it doesn't come across as which is interesting for someone who is high profile, as the person who cares that much about the look at me.
I had a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about getting canceled or whatever. And I was like, I think I've been canceled. I think I have the career of a person that's canceled, and I just work quietly, and nobody messes with me, and I don't mess with anybody. I'm like any other working actor, basically. I want to do another project. Like, I want another series. I want to do, a comedy special, or, I want to continue to work. But I don't have the kind of career that I can say, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with some networks and they're going to pitch stuff to me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have that kind of career. So there's a part of me that still has a need and desire to work, but I'm not like on the other side of the thing where I'm just like, yeah, people are waiting for a new Tim Meadows project or something.
Next, like it or not, society's response to comedy is changing, and so must the comedians.
How do I meet you so I can say this thing that I want you to know and you get it and you're not offended by it?
So when you come here in Philly and when you're on tour, what is that comedy show going to look like?
It's a traditional stand-up comedy show. It's me. Just like in this interview, you find out who I am, and if you don't know me, you get to know me a little bit, and you come to love me in 45 minutes to an hour. If you know me from my comedy, you know that I do, over my career, there's been conceptual comedy pieces that I've done on SNL, and there are characters that I've done, and I think this year through too, I feel more seasoned, as they say. And I also feel like I have more of a message in my stand-up this time out. And I really like the reaction that I get from the audiences because I have fun and the show is great. And then I ended by talking about things and talking about us as Americans and my hopes and dreams for our country.
You said you like to talk about issues and things and who we are.
Right.
But it feels like that has become more of a slippery slope. And you've been doing that for a minute. I mean, you go back to OJ and AC and making those types of jokes that were controversial topics at the time. Can you still address those issues, or have we gone so far into divided that that's not even fun anymore?
I don't think that we've gone so far that it's not fun. I think it's just that it's not fun for some people. I think people are, one, overly sensitive for themselves, but also overly sensitive that other people are being offended or being persecuted by jokes. Heightened awareness and sensitivity can be a minefield for comedians to walk through. And then what you have to learn to do as a comedian is how to still speak your truth and walk through the minefield, because you're not gonna make everybody happy. And I don't care anymore. And if you come to the show, people will see. Like, there's things that I talk about that I don't care that people don't like it or they do like it. And I don't encourage people to cheer or boo. It's an interesting question.
It almost sounds like you're more invested at this point in your career. You're like, look, I got to do what I got to do, and hopefully the right people appreciate it.
Yes, but here's the thing: is that I have done that, but I've also learned as I've been writing this material that I had to adjust things to meet the audience halfway. Thank God I have the freedom of speech and the freedom in the comedy club that I can say this controversial thing just because I'm trying to figure out how do I meet you halfway mentally and like comedically. How do I meet you so that I can say this thing that I want you to know and you get it and you're not offended by it.
That's like comedy's version of how can we ever evolve and learn if we're too afraid to even have the conversation. So you silence the conversation before it happens.
If you can't say it, you don't have time to make it better or to work on it or to like even because, and there's been things that I've done on stage where I went, okay, that's just stupid. And I'm not even going to say it anymore because it's not really, doesn't really hit me. You know, it doesn't really mean that much to me enough to say it every night and try to figure out how do I fix this and make it right.
Next up, the cult classic Mean Girls is rebooting and coming back, but his role, it's a little different.
It was a trip because they were there into their own thing, man. They were nice to me, but they were nice to me like you would be nice to like the old guy sitting at the end by himself when nobody's talking to him. Let's go talk to the old guy for a minute. Let's take him some Jell-O and see what his world is like.
One of the cult followings you have is from Mean Girls. Mean Girls, and then sequels, and then Mean Girls the musical, and now Mean Girls the musical movie.
It's coming out in January, I believe.
Okay, is that another project you're excited about? Do you relive that cult following?
Yeah, I mean, that was fun to do, first of all. I love Tina Fey, and I think Tina is just, I say it all the time, and I don't care if she knows it, but like, I have such a crush on her writing. I love her writing. And she's a great person. I love hanging out with her and shooting stuff with her too. But I just love how she works. And Mean Girls is just like one example of it, but like this movie is going to be different from the other one. It's for another generation of girls, women, people who love comedy. And it was a trip to get back into also because now the age difference between me and the actresses in the movie is like 35, years or something like that. And so it was a trip because they were there into their own thing, man. They were nice to me, but they were nice to me like you would be nice to like the old guy sitting at the end by himself when nobody's talking to him. Let's go talk to the old guy for a minute. Let's take him some Jell-O and see what his world is like.
You got a bunch of sirs and things like that?
Oh, man, all day. They were sweet, though. They were very friendly.
Have you been dreaming about me?
Have I been dreaming about you?
Yeah.
And then I'm also in this movie called Dream Scenario with Nick Cage that's coming out, I think it's next week or something. It's a fantastic movie. I just saw it recently.
I'm laughing because your whole energy is like, I think it's coming out next week or something. Like, go ahead and find it. The whole
Googling.
This whole
just
celebrity thing, it's like, I did that movie. You can find it. Google me.
Yes, just Google me.
We end every episode of The Pulse with the concept of use your voice for good. So when you hear the phrase use your voice for good, what does that mean to you?
When I hear that phrase, it makes me think of standing up for those less fortunate, those that can't speak for themselves. That's what it means. That's immediate the thing that I feel when I hear it.
We will see you on tour soon. I will check out the movies. Next time you're in Philadelphia, come on through and co-host the show with us. I would enjoy that.
All right, I'll do it. I'll show you what a great journalist I would have been.
Absolutely. And we can pay you slightly more than the fast food place.
All right.
Guys, thanks so much for watching The Pulse today with actor, comedian, writer Tim Meadows. He was just fun. I don't know that I've interviewed anybody yet who cared less about their celebrity status than he did. He's just enjoying the work, having a good time, and sharing his voice. I often say I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. A reminder that you can also listen to the entire interview all places where you get your podcasts. Just hit subscribe so you get your notification. Past episodes are on YouTube as well as connected TV. That's Roku, Samsung, Apple TV. all of those things. We're right at your fingertips. I leave you today, as I always do, reminding you whenever you can, use your voice for good and have a good one.